Good afternoon. Roll call. Councilmember Harris. Councilmember Jeruso, absent. Councilmember King. Councilmember Green. Councilmember Thomas. We do not have a quorum.
Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get started so we don't have folks just waiting around. We'll take up the, Councilmember Green. We'll take up the approval of the minutes and number 3 and 4 once we have a quorum, but why don't we go ahead and start with reducing street homelessness? So Nate, Clutch. And just so I start off properly, today is Monday, October 30th, and it's our 10th Quality of Life Committee meeting for 2023. Today, we're going to focus on the city's continued efforts to address homelessness in the city in close partnership with providers, community stakeholders, including our business community. So I'm happy to see some of our business leaders in the audience. We are going to have Nate Fields present, along with Clutch Consulting and Unity. And so if y'all could go ahead once you get settled, introduce yourselves, and then we can get started.
Hello, everyone. Nate Fields, Director of Homeless Services and Strategies from the Mayor's Office of New Orleans.
Hello, everyone. Taylor Dials, Deputy Director of Office of Homeless Services and Strategies.
Martha Cagle, Director of Unity of Greater New Orleans.
And Mandy Chapman Semple, Clutch Consulting.
Wonderful. And just so you know, we will take public comment after this item. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes, and because we may have more than 1 or 2, I will limit you to 2 minutes. And then I know we also have some comments that have been submitted electronically. But why don't y'all get started and we can roll along.
All right. Thank you very much to everyone who is here. Thank you for your time. Councilwoman Green, I appreciate you for everything that you do. And assistant in our office, Councilwoman Harris, thank you for everything that you have done in participation in with our office as well. But today we want to do some high level summaries of everything that we've been working on with Clutch Consulting Group. And when I say we, I'm also including Unity of Greater New Orleans with our esteemed leadership of Martha Cagle. We want to make sure that everyone here is represented and make sure that we talk through all of the different parts that we have participated in thus far. All right, we have it. Oh, great. So as you can see here, we've given you some timeline of some of the things that have already taken place and some of the things that we have been focusing on during the time period of us starting with Clutch Consulting Group. At 2020, Community Task Force to Reduce Street Homelessness, chaired by Bill Hines and retired Judge Calvin Johnson. And in that process, we came out with, of course, the working force to move towards the unhoused NOFA, which now has been awarded to Unity of Greater New Orleans. In Q1, directing and pointing my position to the mayor's office, bringing that office into fruition. In Q2, working with that award, the special award that came down from HUD to house 420 individuals. And in Q3, Clutch Consulting hired and has been working with us on working with the encampment work and also our sustainability plan. In Q4, an unhoused initiative underway, and sustainability plan. So we are moving in the right direction. Things have been happening throughout the continuous work that we have all been doing, but in the next couple of steps, we want to make sure that we are focused on the continuum as a whole, not just on particular areas. Okay. Now, in our collective plan, the ambitious is low to no homelessness, unsheltered population. We want to make sure that we are focused on getting that number as low as we possibly can, and if not, alleviating it altogether. Okay. And there's a couple of parts of this strategy, and in this strategy, we're not just going to be focusing on the street homeless population, but the persons who are also in shelters, rehousing up to 1,500 individuals by the end of 2025, with a targeted encampment decommissioning of the inner core, coordinated housing navigation to all the persons who are the unsheltered, and amplify accelerated exits into the housing from the shelter providers. Now, in doing this process, we have to make sure that we are taking care of all the individuals who are currently seeking services. The unsheltered as well as the sheltered population is important within this process to move us in the right direction. What's different about this plan is we're going to be taking all of the existing resources and the ones that are coming online and bringing those things into the community so that we make sure that we are touching all parts of the population. And how do we do that, right? Target capacity, creating encampment teams that have already started, coordinated outreach across the region and into housing the unhoused population in persons. Engaging in rental market. And in this rental market, a lot of persons said that these places don't exist, housing doesn't exist, but we had to address it differently. We have to buy our way into the market, which means that we have to give landlord incentives, upfront costs, holding costs, and moving costs. Focus on rapid exiting from homelessness. Now, we don't want this to be a multi-layered process. If we can shorten the time span from a person leaving from the street or the shelter systems and directly into housing, we can keep them engaged the entirety, and their process in the housing will be more successful. And then moving into our plan of sustainability. When we are doing this, we are investing in things that will keep people sustained in the housing process. So we are looking into quality case management, making sure that the individuals have everything that they need to be able to sustain. What is that looking like? We're talking about housing packages. We're talking about furniture. We're talking about making sure that they have food resources and knowing who to reach out to within if they come in contact with a situation that becomes difficult. Now, just a breakdown of what this is going to look like. From 23 to 24, targeting encampment decommissioning for the inner core, and also looking at coordinated outreach efforts. These have already started. So in that, we're looking to use these braided resources, the unsheltered NOFA for the $15 million for the 420 individuals or slots that we're going to create. 150 of those additional slots that are being created through the Unity ERA, which is already secured, and city ARPA funds that are already secured. Now, we put up here the 40 slots for the French Quarter management. These have been proposed. We want these things to exist, but right now we're in the phases of trying to go after those fundings. In the future, we are looking to go after 390 other slots to create and bring into the system so that we can continuously be able to assist the individuals who are coming into homelessness. In 2023 and beyond, we are looking to bring on the 375 PSH for turnover and 125 for future resources. Now, this is going to be an amazing system once we can get things moving in the right direction, but we are in the beginning phases of this system. So far, as you can see, we have the 420, we have the 150, but we also still have to work on those additional 40 and the 390. We have a lot of room that we still have to work on, but we are moving in the right direction with the assistance of Unity and Clutch Consulting Group. And then from here, I will turn it over to Ms. Martha Cagle.
Thank you so much, Nate. As the council knows, but maybe not all the public does, Unity is designated by the federal government, the city of New Orleans and Jefferson Parish as the lead agency for the continuum of care of services and housing for people experiencing homelessness. And we're delighted to be working in partnership with the city, with Nate, with Councilwoman Harris, with the city's new Office of Homeless Services on this initiative. And I have to say, Nate has made a tremendous difference in such a short period of time that you've been in your role. It's really amazing. We're very excited about the goal being announced today of rehousing 1,500 individuals who are currently unhoused in the next 2 years. That goal was arrived in partnership between Unity and the city of New Orleans. And it's really achievable because, first of all, because of the outstanding expertise of our member organizations, which has been developed over a period of time. They are really second to none in the country in their ability to do this work. Because of Nate's leadership, because of Councilwoman Harris's leadership, because of the community task force to reduce street homelessness, Bill Hines and Judge Calvin Johnson, their role and the role of all the members of that task force made it possible for us to get that huge federal grant, which is really a key part of this initiative, and bring all kinds of resources from the philanthropic and business community and the healthcare community to the table, getting Auctioner, getting Tulane, getting LCMC, getting so many partners to the table. And also because the state is jumpstarting our work. We still don't actually have access to that big federal grant. And so the state, has come up with $1.1 million to jumpstart that effort. Want to give them a big shout out. I want to thank Jefferson Parish and all of our local housing authorities, Hano in particular, for providing housing resources. And of course, our philanthropic and business sector partners, especially Greater New Orleans Foundation, United Way, New Orleans and Company, Greater New Orleans, Inc. All these partners have come together, and it's really those partnerships that make this possible and very doable. But I have to say the thing that is most exciting is just the city's commitment, that the city is coming up with resources, and particularly that focus on sustainability. I don't think we've ever had anyone as determined as you are, Councilwoman Harris, and I think that's making all the difference, and really appreciate your deep commitment to the work and your deep commitment to the work, Councilman Green and Councilman Thomas as well. So want to go over kind of how this is going to work. The partnership with the city is essential to respond to the current conditions, economic conditions, affordability conditions in New Orleans. We know from numerous studies that it is the acute shortage of affordable rental housing that is the primary driver of high rates of homelessness in our community and across the nation. And so it's very important for this initiative to be a success, that Unity and the City Office of Homeless Services be partners in leading this initiative. And our role in particular is one of administering and implementing. We are going to be the funding administrator for the new federal grant, the fiscal intermediary for the city rapid rehousing funds, as well as the state rapid rehousing funds, and will oversee the work of our agencies in providing housing and services under those grants. In addition, we'll continue in partnership with our wonderful member organization ViaLink to oversee the homeless management information system and provide data and analysis to aid in sustainability planning and performance management. With the City Office of Homeless Services, Nate, we'll work to align federal, state, and local resources to achieve our goals. We'll use a strategic command model to ensure communications, transparency, and actively manage and report on performance. And obviously, underlying this initiative is immense collaboration between the city and Unity and with all of our partners and member organizations to deliver the rehousing services.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I also just want to shout out public health, sanitation, the law enforcement groups who have been working with us over this time period and being strong support. I wish this individual was here, but Turk, I just want to shout you out for all of your last minute phone calls that you show up and assist us with helping in particular areas. So just wanted to let him know, thank you. Also, Rachel with the health department, I wanted to thank you personally as well for all of your assistance and help with all of the day-to-day work. You just came in today and assisted us. So just wanted to let you both know you are well appreciated. So what's next in Q4? We will be continually doing the work and the decommissioning work the two sites. They have already started the work and are looking really good right now. You will be seeing in the next coming months of what the decommissioning has to offer. Establish the flex funds. We have been working with Ganoff and United Way for establishing a flex fund so that we can help house people quickly, so they will move in and have fully furnished households with all of the amenities, and also help us pay for landlord incentives and other things that are needed during the housing process. We already talked about braiding the community and the work, but now we're talking about braiding the communications and reporting. As we're doing this work, we want to be speaking the same language, doing the same exact work, and also giving out the reporting in high level, making sure that all of the numbers are consistent across the board and that we have a continued plan moving forward. And the big piece, continued sustainability plan for the next couple of years. We want to make sure that we are building out a plan and a process that outlives all of us, something that the community can hold on to and be able to invest in over time period. Now, what we want to do is continuously come back to you and report to you on a quarterly basis so that you will know where we are within this process and are educated and understanding of all parts of this process. And if there's something that comes up that you would need us to focus on, we can do so. All right.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomas.
First of all, thank you guys. I sent you an email, Mr. Fields, and I don't know if you responded back to the email, but the email was talking about this effort. And now that we have these grants, how do we impact other communities? You know, this isn't a new issue. You know, the one good thing about being around a while is that you can remember all of the other efforts to stamp out homeless, and we still got homeless. All of the other efforts to create affordable housing, and we still don't have affordable housing. All the other efforts to stop gentrification, and we still have gentrification. And the population that's most in jeopardy are historic African American communities. You look at the district I used to represent, it's not majority African American anymore. Look at Bywater, well, we called it the Upper Nine. I always thought the whole city was Bywater. Look at the Treme, right? And so I tell folks, I've never used to be a conspiracy theorist because I thought OJ did it, right? But now that you take a look at certain patterns and how they affect only certain communities, then maybe sometimes it is. So my first question is, in this effort, we've led with the fact that Super Bowl is coming. Why does it have to be about Super Bowl coming? Why can't it be just about the fact that we have homeless people in America?
So our effort isn't focusing on the Super Bowl is coming. Our effort is to focus on the individuals who are at these larger encampment sites and throughout Greater New Orleans who are dealing in impoverished situations. I not one time will say our focus is because of the Super Bowl. My focus has always been helping those who are the unhoused. Since day one, I touched down. It was never about, oh, we got this timeline of the Super Bowl that's coming. We got to get in front. Mine has always been the same exact thing. There are people who are the unhoused who need to be in housing, and all of my partners feel the same exact way. The timeline is caught up in the Super Bowl piece. I have nothing to do with that. My timeline is people on the street, they've been on the street too long, let's get them off the street. If the Super Bowl is somebody else's agenda, more power to you, it's just not mine.
Well, on the last line of the correspondence that I sent to you, it says, since all the other stuff is an issue, what are our plans to protect the residents of New Orleans East and other communities from a potential proliferation of this problem while we service and protect the interests of downtown? And so while there is a plan to deal with what we're dealing with in the immediacy downtown, what is the plan for the other communities?
So the plan is for all of the communities. It's not broken down into sectors. It's for every single community. There is not one part of the community that's going to be left out of this plan. What needs to happen, especially if we're talking about the 9th, is that it has still been devastation that's been left behind since the hurricanes. What we need to do is start building in the 9. We need to start bringing up more things in the 9. I was actually talking to a group today and even another group on Saturday. We have to start focusing on building new housing within those locations. It is a beautiful area. It's a beautiful history behind those areas. We need to invest in that part. If I can do anything, I want to get a more robust transportation system. I want supermarkets to be out there in the 9, and I want more housing in the 9. But this plan does not say that we're focusing just on downtown. It's for all of New Orleans.
Okay, so we want the same thing that we wanted with the Legacy Project. When all the same conversation, if you remember, you were here, there, revolved around the Legacy Project, where we wanted more housing and better transportation. And you remember how long ago the Legacy Project was, the proposed Legacy Project. So what's going to make it happen this time? And what's going to make it sustainable this time? If you remember, I think we were in those rooms together. And the same thing he hoped for were the same things, conversation we had 30 years ago.
Well, I think the Legacy
So
Project,
have we done that?
the Legacy Project was never funded. So that's the major difference. It was never funded. So there was maybe 1/20th of the funds that were raised. So whereas here we have a huge, we have the majority of the funds already committed.
For housing and for transportation
Yes, so we
and for
have,
infrastructure.
I think this is very doable. Because we have, the majority of the resources are already in hand, are already committed.
So how do we deal with because the houseless population, they get information and access the information too. So they see these efforts, right, downtown. And so when they pick up their tents and they pick up their stuff and they move to other communities that are affected. And the sad thing about this right now is that, Councilmember Harris, is that it seems like communities are pitted now against each other, right? And I was in a meeting with a group of people who are extremely philanthropic, right? And their families are, and they give back a lot. But now they see these shifts and how it's impacting their kids and their families and where they live. So how do we deal with that? Because we're seeing more tents, and we're seeing more people who are houseless pop up in communities where they weren't when we talked about the Legacy Project, where they weren't a year and a half ago, where they weren't 2 weeks ago.
So there needs to be, although we have a good amount of resources, there needs to be stuff in place to divert people from being in those camps and in tents. We have individuals who are calling our offices day in and day out who can't pay their light bill, who don't know where their next check is coming from. And God forbid, if they have a child on the way and they're the only parent in the household, they fall short and they can't sustain. So it's a hard process to get in front of, but there are ways that we can sustain and make sure that we divert people before they even hit the system. But we need to be able to create those resources so they never hit the system. Now, what we are doing with the sustainability plan is thinking about how do we get in front of those situations before they even occur.
Matthew 25 and I think 35, hungry you fed me. Stranger, you brought me in, sick and infirm in prison. You visited me. So that scripture's been around for a long, long time. But people still aren't taking a lot of strangers into their homes. The issue for me, and I'm sorry to be dominating so much of this time, but this is a major conversation where I live and amongst the people in the community. And the disturbing thing about it is that communities and many homeowners feel like they have to prepare for something that's affecting their investment and where they live and how they live. And they don't see a solution because it's growing in the midst of us talking about a solution. And so people are afraid.
Absolutely. And these are scary times, but what I can say to you is this, and this is a larger fight. The fight on poverty in the United States of America is affecting everyone right now. even the persons who are the homeowners. Here in New Orleans, we have persons who have insane insurance rates. We have persons who are losing their employment. We have people who are seeing the devastation cross their doorway every single day. So how do we get in front of that? Well, I would say to you, a part of it is making sure that people don't rise up these rates and not pay their employees and not take care of the persons who work for them while they're seeing these increases in the housing and the housing affordability crisis. So how dare you sit by and see the rates of increase of the cost of living, but not increase the pay that you're paying your employees day in and day out?
Well,
So how do we start that conversation?
We live in America, in the American dream. And all of those issues are unfortunate. You know, we can't afford to go to the schools we want anymore. Home ownership and generational wealth in the African American community is the lowest it's ever been, right? And you hate to sound like everything has to do with race, right? But as a historian, and I can track gentrification, I can track displacement and give you the data to back it up, right? From the crack days to when certain people got ran out of the community, to watching the demographic flip, right? And see who's there now. There is one community that when you look at the data center report, when you look at the disparity around income, the gap is for the Black community is $30,000 worse than it was. Black children are poorer than they were pre-Katrina. Black communities have been gentrified at a higher pace in this community post-Katrina. And so I'm just saying that while we're trying to fix this, are we conscious and have lost percentage of per capita population at a higher rate? I'm not telling you, I'm not guessing with these numbers. These are all facts that we all know. So how do we protect historic communities, right? If we say we want to be fair, if we say we want to help everybody, how do we help protect those communities while we're helping our brothers and sisters who are houseless? Because right now, the numbers for that community, given the CBC report, given the data center report, given the Brookings Institute report, the numbers for the largest population, the demographic in this city, is going in the wrong direction in all of the social areas. Fact.
So we need to start working on changing legislation so that those persons won't lose their community and lose their housing. We need to educate the persons in their community about how they can sustain. We need to bring the community to the table and make sure that they're supported. We need to make sure that everybody in that community holds hand across the table. But in this effort, I guarantee you, the number one thing that has come up is race. And everybody here at the table, we understand the disparities in African Americans. It's 63% in our population. We are focused on that. We are going into the Treme and other locations where African Americans exist and live and making sure that they are held whole. We are going to the city meetings and sat through there in the late evenings and talk to the individuals. They can call me directly and have done so to let them know that we have not forgotten about you, that you are our focus, that every single person who is in New Orleans has a focus of our office, but we are here for the people. We're not here for any other thing than that. But we do need to get to the communities and make sure that they understand what is available for them.
Well, the crazy thing about this is that there are people who would take this conversation and think it's a for or against, right? And that's unfortunate because you have two communities that are hurting. And I think until we come up with a plan where both communities are assisted, stabilized, the issue mitigated, and sustainable impact, right? Then people are afraid. And homeowners are going to start talking out, right? And the people who are houseless are going to start wondering why this country doesn't protect them and give them, especially if they've been a veteran, right? Or they've paid their taxes, why this country doesn't protect them. And so we're going to sit on the side and watch two different communities be pitted against each other when everybody's rights and everybody's ability to live at least the illusion of the American dream, it ought to be for all of us. And right now, folk don't feel like it is.
Well, one of the things that I can assure you is that we are working on a project along with the health department for the Healthy Homes Project to get more funding to that project so we can help those homeowners and other individuals who are currently in those neighborhoods sustain where they currently are. Those communities haven't been forgotten. We are still fighting for them.
Well, that would be the first time in history. So, Councilmember Harris, with your leadership, as I study all those other cities in this country, and look at the demographic now, from DC, parts of Detroit, Oakland, and other cities, you know which demographic has been pushed out. You know which community has been most affected. I just hope that a certain demographic doesn't have to be punished while we're doing the right thing under God. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Green, any questions?
Yes, I was gonna wait until after the comment cards because some things may be said. And I actually think that I will comment afterwards. I just want to say that Mr. Dials and Mr. Fields especially, I see you out there. When you have notified me that there's gonna be an encampment cleanup, I'm there. I see you walking amidst the needles, walking amidst the rats, walking amidst the food that has been dumped. And I'm not off of that yet because you have pictures of pans of food being left in the open, right? Mr. Fields, could you comment on that? I didn't actually want to, you are such a sincere individual. And I got a lot of grief over wanting to have an ordinance passed that said that you can't take a pan of open food and just leave it in the middle of an encampment. Could you talk about what you saw just recently? And then I'm going to go into my comments.
Okay. We went into the encampment for the encampment cleaning and we saw not just one or two trays, but it was a half a pallet of trays of food that were dropped in the encampment in the Treme.
Let me just make it clear to everyone who is here and everyone who is watching, that is a cruel thing to do. I have seen the rats that are caused by this food being left out. I understand that sometimes it may be at the best of intentions, but the bottom line is that when you drop boxes of food on different streets, not boxes, I wish it were boxes, when you just leave pans of food, it's basically dumping on human beings. There are rats there. We've seen them. We've walked amidst them. It's not that they're there because they're getting a charge out of just being there. They're there because there's food that's provided for them. The interesting thing is that people in the encampments will tell you they don't want people to do that. Am I right?
Yes.
Am I right? It's important to recognize that there are some things that people do, which I think in some respects reflect on a bit of cruelty because you only do it in certain areas. You only drop boxes of open salad dressing on LaSalle Street. You wouldn't do it in some other areas. But I think that they also, in some respects, have a disconnect between reality and between what they think is a good thing to do. So I haven't brought that food ordinance back up right now because I know that there are people who say, well, I penalize somebody who's doing the right thing. Nothing in that ordinance suggests that we penalize people who are doing the right thing. However, I do want to say this, and then I'm going to come back after the comments. I want you to know that I appreciate your work because it is making a difference. It is very difficult. I want everyone to know and everyone who's watching that I go to an encampment cleanup, such as on Claiborne Avenue, and I see Mr. Fields and Mr. Dials there. And then 2 days later, people have dropped off the same things that were taken away. 2 days later, you are not doing a service for people when you bring the things that you don't want and you leave it under there. What I appreciate is that on Sundays, there are some people who take their cars, open the backs of it, serve food, and talk to the people, communicate with the people. I appreciate the fact that only in 1 or 2 instances, and I want to make it clear, only in 1 or 2 instances has a church or someone taken someone in who was unhoused to live with them or to give them a job at the church. It is a complex issue that we have to deal with, but I do want to say that we need to also keep this in mind. While we talk about lack of affordable housing, something is being done right now where you're replacing some people, right?
Yes.
You're placing some people. We haven't created any incredible amount of affordable housing in the number of months that you've been here, right?
No.
It's because we are providing contact and communications with landlords, getting them to consider taking in someone who is unhoused. That's not just new affordable housing, that's working with landlords. Because one of the reasons that there are so many people who are unhoused is because the last person that a landlord wants is someone who is addicted to a substance, who doesn't have a reference, and who doesn't have a job. That takes proactive work, communications with landlords, and that has nothing to do with affordability. That has to do with availability of someone to someone who has issues. I also will ask us to continue to focus on the fact that there is a mental health challenge amongst many people. I'll give you a specific example. There was a woman who was sleeping on the neutral ground, which is very narrow, Old Gentilly Road, across from a car wash. The car wash, interestingly enough, is being run by a Christian organization that wants to help people, but she refused to help. They offered her a job, et cetera, et cetera. If she had rolled one way or the other, she would have rolled into the street and potentially been killed. The New Orleans Police Department, the Health Department, and Unity went to that location and spent 3 hours talking to that person. 3 hours. It took 3 hours to get that person to agree to leave that location, and with the help of DePaul, was able to get some of the services that she needed for a number of months. That person chose to return and is now back on the streets. And if you talk to that person, as I have, you will recognize that we cannot ignore whatever the mental health challenge is that stops some people from wanting to be inside, and some people want to be near where they can have the substance available that makes them feel good. And you can't get that inside of a Mission or other places like that. There are beds available at other places. There are beds available at other places. The bottom line is that we have a lot of work to do on our end that involves not just housing, but also drugs and also mental health challenges. But I'm gonna come back if I should have any other questions at the end. But I just want us to keep all those things in mind as we're dealing with a very, very complex issue, and also how it affects the communities that are around them. It is not unreasonable for someone to complain about the fact that when they walk out of their business, they see drug activity, they see nudity, they see feces being dropped into the drains and things like that. And we have to also be sensitive about the businesses that have been displaced. There's a reason that there are so many vacant spots on Claiborne Avenue, because it's a challenge to want to locate at that location. So at the end of the day, there's just a lot that needs to be done, but I'm gonna go back to where I started, which was positive. Thank you for the work, especially that you've done since you've come into place. Thank you, Mr. Dowles. I see you out there. It's a very, very complex issue that affects people who are in the encampments and people who are around the encampments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. I want to echo the positive statement. This is one issue that the city, the business community, the nonprofits have come together to try to solve in a holistic way, without consideration of race, without consideration of timelines. The Super Bowl, Councilmember Thomas, I didn't even know when that was, when we were talking about 2025. So, you know, it's for me not a consideration of timing, it's a consideration of getting people housed into the treatment they needed and with the services that they need. I see Leo Marsh from Habitat for Humanity. He's working on moving kits for people who are coming up the streets and have no place to move into. But I also want to highlight something that Leo said. What is it, 40 or 50 people are in, families are in danger of losing their homes, 60 now, in danger of losing their homes and becoming homeless because of high insurance costs and because of high taxes. So we need to keep those people in mind when we talk about the folks that we experience under the overpass, on O.C. Haley, on St. Charles Avenue, in Chemay, in the Lower Nine, in the East. But again, I just want to stay positive because this really is a collective effort. And Nate, you really have, and Martha, really have gotten troops together and in line with the help of our business community like Andy Copeland, Ganoff, United Way, the Business Council. You know, just so many people are really in the same direction now. And that's really what it takes to get people out of crisis and to get this city out of crisis. The other thing I want to say before I open it to public comment is, and Mandy, you can talk about this we don't have nearly the population that some other cities have. So this is manageable. If we all come together, you know, we talk about Oakland. My husband was just in Oakland and he said it's crazy there, just what that population looks like compared to ours. So maybe if you could provide some comparative numbers, including some racial breakdown of our numbers versus some other places.
Sure. Well, it's been wonderful working with this team in New Orleans because they are such an extraordinary team. And I think to put a finer point on how manageable this issue is, you are closer than any other large city or major city to achieving this goal of low or no unsheltered homelessness. And this idea, this exercise of putting together the resources that Unity is in control of, the resources that the city has available, the resources at the state that you can access, and really starting to braid those resources created a very powerful opportunity to say, in fact, we can return 1,500 people to housing in just 2 years. And Councilmember Green, I really appreciate your point about that's without necessarily building new affordable housing. Now, to sustain our progress, of course, given all of the conditions, right, we need to also build. There are particular policy conditions at play that, policy issues at play that need to be addressed. But you're closer than so many other cities. And that's what's so extraordinary here. You have a history of having rehoused everyone off your streets in the past. And we really think that this initiative plus the sustainability planning that's taking place in parallel is really going to arm all of you as council members with the information that you need to make those really critical decisions about how to sustain what's possible. That is something that no other major city in this country is having the opportunity to even consider at this point. Nobody's thinking about what it looks like to build the next generation of homeless response systems because we have achieved the ability to rehouse everyone who's experiencing unsheltered homelessness today, to really think about diversion and how to prevent people from falling into homelessness. And so, from a statistical perspective, we're in Dallas right now, and they just rehoused 2,700 people in 2 years. And they saw a 14% reduction in a single year in their unsheltered population and a 32% reduction in their chronic homeless population. But I just want to appreciate from a scale perspective, you're talking about achieving low or no unsheltered homelessness, very dramatic reductions with just 1,500 people. And then what comes behind that, right, are several hundred people a year that you're going to help move through your shelter system. And then another probably few thousand a year that you're going to help avoid homelessness altogether. I mean, that's the vision. And other cities are barely scratching the surface with the same kinds of numbers that just to see, a modest 10 or 15 or 20% decrease in the street population. Houston, for example, they're well up over 30,000 individuals that they've rehoused in the last decade. And they're seeing dramatic reductions, more than 60% reduction in homelessness altogether, but they still have 40% to go. So just to appreciate how well positioned you are, but also to acknowledge the headwinds, right? The very complex economic conditions, the very complex racial dynamics that are at play, and the responsibility we have to address all of those. And I think what we hope today is that this plan shows you how we can coalesce the provider community, how we can bring and braid the community resources to respond to what's in front of us today, and that we can build upon that to have a big vision for the future. And I'm sure as we go, there's an opportunity to braid in all of your affordable housing development activities into the sustainability planning so that we can tackle, neighborhoods and their needs, that we can build a community and a New Orleans that everyone is really proud of. So
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Thomas.
Yeah, really briefly. First of all, Martha, I called you Meg. Forgive me for that earlier. I've worked with you long enough where you're indelible, especially with this issue and who I am. Nate, I want to thank you and your team, but I think what's noticeable is difference is Councilmember Harris was being a little humble, but I think this is the first time maybe we've had an effort not to just get God's children out of the way where people can't see them, but to really deal with the holistic effort to house them and deal with some of the social ills that we have right now. So, Councilmember Harris, I think one of the reasons why we have a chance of success here is because that you've dug in and wanted to take criticism from people who just want to eliminate the house list from sight, as well as protect the communities for growth. And then the last thing I'll say, we're trying to figure out where do people go. In 1960, the city had 620,000 people. Before Katrina, it had 503,000 people. During the Landrieu administration, we had 391,000 people. Now we have 376. So it sounds to me like there are places where people should be able to go.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. I'll go ahead and take public comment now. I have Ms. McKee, you have 2 cards. And just a reminder, everybody has 2 minutes to speak and I will cut you off. Unfortunately, just so we can get to everyone. Ms. McKee.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Thomas. I just want to say, I'm gonna start at the bottom, and I was really impressed with what the lady said here about New Orleans maybe having the distinction of being able to eradicate this. I would love for us to carry that banner. One of the things I want to know is, have we talked to companies like Lowe's, Home Depot, and asked them to renovate some of the city-owned properties for temporary housing? There's some of the, I know that there was an article not too long ago with the school board about some of the properties that they have, and those classrooms could serve as 1-bedroom apartments on a temporary basis, on a revolving basis, to temporarily help us get some of these house brothers and sisters off the street. So I'm just wondering if we're looking at some of those. I mean, they do those type of projects, and there are a number of big corporations who might be interested in that. And if we could identify some of these buildings, you know, maybe that's going to serve as a foundation for permanency. I wanted to go back up, and I'm going to be real quick. Unity, what is the vetting process for landlords? The last thing I personally want to see is some of these landlords who have current and past prolonged, repetitive code enforcement infractions be awarded with these tenants. They have proven themselves to be unlawful and uncaring, and they should not be included in the process. The Willows being one that I will call out. Are the Jefferson Parish residents being housed in New Orleans and vice versa? Are there any contingencies Unity recipients have to agree to retain Unity housing? Meaning that if they have Unity housing, are we asking that they not be on the street in the community panhandling and things like this? Because a lot of homeowners, this is your biggest investment. And not that we're insensitive to your predicament, but I have also invested in many others in my community. And as Councilmember Thomas has said, you know, we're seeing the metrics go down in the African-American community. And when you saturate it with an influx of individuals who need a full body of resources around them, New Orleans East cannot support that because we have 88 plus people, 1 hospital and 2 grocery stores. I don't understand why we're going to put a lot of people out here because we don't have the resources to support them.
Thank Ms. McKee. If you could wrap it up, that'd be great.
Okay.
Nate, can you respond on the school houses and some other properties? And Martha, do you have a response? Okay.
Absolutely. So we've actually already started looking into the schools, trying to figure out ways that we can get in there. We have not reached out to Lowe's and Home Depot for those funding sources, and we can definitely look into that. But we are looking into the schools to try to turn those into affordable housing units.
Thank you. Martha, do you have any response to
Yeah.
Ms. McKee's question?
We're committed to reintegrating people into the community and not concentrating people in any any particular neighborhood. And I would say that if anybody has a complaint to make about anybody who they think might be a formerly unhoused person who might be causing some kind of issue, they should feel free to contact us via our website, unitygno.org, and we will definitely make sure to contact the case managers who are either directly under our supervision or they're under the direct supervision of the State Department of Health. And we'll make sure that that case manager addresses the issue.
Thank you, Martha. Andy Copland, followed by Rico Lewis.
Afternoon, council members. Andy Copland, Greater New Orleans Foundation. And I just want to say a big congratulations and thank you all to the council, particularly Councilmember Harris, for your leadership, to the administration for the leadership of Nate and Taylor, the health department and all the other organizations that have pulled together, to Unity and the nonprofit sector, and to our partners at the Greater New Orleans Foundation, the United Way, who are participating in this. It's a team effort that you all have assembled, and that's the kind of team effort that's going to be successful. There are a couple moments that have made me particularly compelled over the last year. One was when Martha, Bill Hines, and Calvin Johnson came to us and said, look, we have a chance to win $15 million to invest in New Orleans to work on this, but we need to raise some private sector resources. So we agreed to put up $175,000 and to help try to get other philanthropies to do the same. They came up with $1 million in direct cash and $14 million in healthcare pro bono services from LCMC and Ochsner. So that gave us some momentum. Then in this past summer, Councilmember Harris, you all came to us and said, look, we've got a way to jumpstart this quickly to get this process ongoing with city money, with city consultants from Clutch who have succeeded elsewhere in solving this particular kind of challenge. We can jumpstart it, but we need some more money. So we put up another $100,000 and we partnered with the city to run the Flex Fund in partnership with the United Way. So we've got part of it, they've got part of it. We're cutting checks twice a week and working closely with Nate and Taylor to make sure the resources get to the ground. And I just think that there's a real opportunity for us to be successful with a housing first solution. And I think that's also really important to know. This is not moving people. This is about housing people who are unhoused. And that's the best practice. And that's why we're supportive of it. So thank you all for the opportunity and the chance to participate.
Thank you, Andy. Rico, followed by Michael Burnside.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's Rico Lewis. And what I like to say is I'm a part of the shelter for the past 18 months. After being told I was on total supportive housing, that reminds me of, let's see, Homeland Security. It doesn't seem to be securing anything. So after 18 months, and I was due to have open heart surgery, cardiac surgery, and I can't have it. So basically I'm between a rock and a hard place. And I'm sitting here listening at all the congratulations for the programs of which y'all getting started, which is fine, great, wonderful. But need a format from the bottom to the top. Now, I'm a retired engineer and a professional chef. Been halfway around the world and back. But I never thought I would come home to this. And now to come here and listen at it, you know, it's rhetoric to me because I feel I have another 6 to 18 months left. Can't make a move. I gotta have the surgery. I can't have the surgery if I'm out on the street. I picked up a portable tent at the stand down they had just Saturday. I go every year. But I'm a merchant marine, not a veteran. But my family was in the merchants, supplying it during World War II and stuff like that. Uncle died in Pearl Harbor. I got all the horrors. The satisfaction of being home. I'm too old to stimulate myself. 65 years old. Can't do fast food anymore. Living on a fixed income in a place which a lot of things I thought I would never see. I come up in Desire Project. I thought I'd seen it all with the Panthers and Mark Essex and all this type of stuff. Hurricane Betsy, Hilda, you name it, I've seen it. But I feel like I'm going back in time. From what it used to be, everything that used to work is out. The truancy, the prayers, the discipline. Kids calling police for their parents. unheard of, unacceptable. So you people have to do a better job and bring this thing up to light. Not the country, we have to deal with our surroundings. In the surrounding parishes, they don't have the homeless. You don't see the homelessness in the tents and stuff like that because it is not allowed. So if it's not allowed there and depicting on the fact that our city is comparing to larger cities, and there's a lot of money out there, $1.5 million and from Baton Rouge with the new governor coming in, might be another 6 months to a year before they release it.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Burnside, followed by Monique Blossom.
Michael Eric Burnside, 2215 Felicity. It's one of the few times in my life I really wish I had more than 2 minutes. I will probably be asking each one of you to lunch, which I will buy, and you'll give me an hour of your time and I'll bend your ear. I was homeless more or less 8 years. My father's continuing homelessness. He's certainly older than